That was a great set. You know, I know we make it look like we know exactly what everybody's doing every minute of the program, but that was a great set. Thank you. That was terrific. Wow. Um, Anybody old enough in the room to remember before cell phones, if you wanted to show pictures of your family, you had to carry a wallet? A wallet. Boy, kids, ask your great grandparents what that is. But well, I was so delighted that Renee opened up his wallet and showed some pictures of his family. And so since he opened the door, there are 25 Butterworths in our family right now. So for the next 47 minutes, I'd like to show you just a brief shot and a bio of each of the kids. But seriously, 2 months ago in June 12th, we married off the last of our 5 kids. Joseph and Katie got married, and in true payback to all his older brothers and sister, it was a destination wedding in Kauai. So most of my kids are deep in debt now, paying off plane tickets and hotel bills for this opportunity. So, guys, if you have that shot, this is a look at all the Butterworths and all and all the grandkids as well. So the 5 kids are all married, and we have 11 grandkids. The next picture, I think, is it just the grandkids? Yeah, those are the 11 grandkids, oldest to youngest. And so they're not by family, but it's Jill, Liam, Jenna, Ava, Finn, Ellie, Jaron, Jackson, Charlie, Harper, and Hudson, which is a pretty amazing group. They're sweet kids. But since we talk so much about my kids rather than my grandkids, bring that shot up of the 5 kids. This is, oh, nice shirt. Man. Honey, if you're here, I'm sorry. I know that kind of drives you crazy. Like, I only own 1 shirt. But anyway, so the 5 kids in birth order are easy. Joy is our only girl. She's the oldest. And then Jesse over there, the Bill Butterworth clone, is the oldest boy. And then Jeffrey on the other end here. John is the tallest one there. And there's the groom, Joseph. Joy and her husband, Justin, about 4 years ago, left Southern California to move to the teeming metropolis of Wichita Falls, Texas. Yes. Justin is 6'9" and is a basketball coach, and he coached at Azusa Pacific for years, and then was offered this job and took it in Wichita Falls at Midwestern State University, a really good Division II school. And so they moved to Wichita Falls with their 3 daughters, Jill, Jenna, and Jaron. Jill is our oldest granddaughter, and she's now 6'4", and she's on a full basketball scholarship at Oklahoma Baptist University in Shawnee, Oklahoma. Go Bison. And so we, last year, living just outside of Houston, that's a little bit of a haul to get up to Shawnee. So we were able to secure this little place as a second home in Wichita Falls. So we go up to Wichita Falls for all of basketball season so we can watch our son-in-law's team play, and then we drive the couple hours up to Shawnee to watch Jill play as well. So we're diehard basketball fans, which is really a riot because Kathy didn't even know what basketball was when she married me. But she's become really a good fan, and she can really take down a ref whenever it's necessary. Jesse on the end, some of you know Jesse because he lives up in the Seattle area. He lives in Kirkland. For years, he had Rain City Church, which unfortunately did not survive COVID. And so they had to close the doors at Rain City and move them to different congregations. And I was concerned. I love Renee's phrases about redemptive narratives. I mean, it was pretty bad when your church goes down, but if you have to lose your church, it's really great that somebody in your congregation works for Microsoft. So Jesse now works at Microsoft in a position where he's helping to train some of the techies there, make presentations about their new stuff. So he's a very happy camper. Jesse and Marissa have 3 children as well, 2 sons, Liam and Finn, and then you noticed there is our adopted granddaughter, Harper, from Ethiopia, who is just a delight. We're just thrilled that Harper's in our family. Jeffrey lives in Austin, Texas. Jeffrey got into the world of advertising. He makes commercials, and he does quite well at it. He won an Emmy and works for some pretty serious ad agencies until he finally said, well, you know what ad guys do when they're middle-aged? They quit, and they start their own company. So he has his own ad agency now, which is really amazing because, don't tell him I'm telling you this, but this kid was my challenge. This was my, what are we going to do with this guy? And I remember very, very specifically, one night in total despair, I said just kind of cynically, you watch, one day we'll all be working for Jeffrey. He employs everybody in that picture except me. At least full-time, part-time in some way. So he's very successful in that world. He's married to Sarah. They have 3 beautiful daughters, Ava, Ellie, and Charlotte, who goes by Charlie, okay? Now, next is the tall guy. That's John. John and his wife Lisa live in Sacramento with Jackson and Hudson. And John works full-time for Jeffrey, doing a lot of the computer and website design for some of their clients that they have. And then there's the groom, Joseph, and I think this is the next shot, the happy couple. Yeah, there's Joseph and Katie. They are good Southern California people. Renee said the other night, everybody's got a movie thing. Joseph is in the movie business, and he also goes by the first name Bo. So Bo and his college roommate started making documentaries after they got out of college and have had a certain degree of success with them. Sold one to Netflix, sold one to HBO, so they're doing okay. But fortunately, he married Katie, who brings the stability to the family. Katie is an attorney. With our family, I felt it was vital we had legal representation. Vital. And that sweet little girl is an assistant United States attorney in Beverly Hills. And so she can take you down if you need to be. So anyway, she is a delight, and we're really glad that she's in the family. And it's not a wedding shot, but I had to sneak this in because this, if not going to the wedding, Jesse in the front there is still trying to make it in his music career. He actually recorded an album this spring at Abbey Road, where the Beatles did their deal. And he invited his old dad to come with him and say, you want to just sit in the studio and watch this happen. So after a few days in need of a break, we decided to go out onto the street and see if we could recreate this shot, which later one of the other, but John, the computer guy, he photoshopped Paul McCartney there in the middle. Because I want to be clear, he was not there for this particular crossing of the street. But if you're kind of an old Beatles fan, Abbey Road Studio is amazing because it's state-of-the-art. All the equipment is just incredible. But they have all this old stuff sitting around, and they love to tell you about it. They see that little machine over there? Yeah, they did Sgt. Pepper's on that little machine, and it's dusty and moldy, and nobody touches it anymore. But anyway, that was a fun experience. And so we had a great time together doing that. However, just an FYI, if you ever go over there and try to do this, you cannot believe how you take your life in your hands trying to get this shot, because it's a fully functioning street where people are just zooming by, and especially if you want to be without a whole bunch of people in there, it takes forever to get that shot. These are important things to know at a Bible camp. How to get an Abbey Road shot So that's probably enough of that. We should probably turn that down. So anyway, that's the Butterworth family. That's my wallet that I just wanted to show you so you have a little better idea of what's going on. Now, as I mentioned, we are going to talk about marriage this morning, and the other thing I need to do to set it up is I understand we ran out of outlines at one point, but now we have made some more. So if you need an outline, would you just put your hand up for a second, and maybe one of you guys can just help these folks? That would be terrific. That would be terrific. So when we talk about marriage, as I mentioned yesterday, this whole series for me, Family Success 2.0, is my attempt to kind of recreate some of the presentations I made 35, 40 years ago when my kids were small, when my marriage was young. And but what I believed as I searched the scriptures, this is what God wanted us to know about a strong marriage, about a strong family, about what God has for us. And we started with Psalm 127 yesterday. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. The unmistakable priority of a spiritual dimension in your home. Now, as the week progresses, we'll get into my particular report card grade on how all of this works. But I will give you a spoiler alert if you don't already know. As we talk about marriage today, you need to understand that my sweet wife, Kathy, is my second wife. That my first marriage failed after 17 years. And my goal is not to tear down anybody or, make claims that aren't necessary to say from the front. But you just need to know that I have lived through the pain of a divorce and want to talk about it in my next session on Thursday, because I think we're kidding ourselves if divorce is not a reality in this room. Maybe not for you, but maybe somebody you know, a friend or another relative or someone. It's not the kind of thing, where are all the divorced people? Raise your hand. That's not the kind of, oh, yeah, count me in. That's not the kind of audience participation you usually like. However, it's ridiculous to assume that it hasn't hit just about everyone. So today's presentation is a little wackadoodle in that it's a foundational talk from marriage that I've done for years, but everything that I want to talk about in a personal level is going to be my marriage to Kathy. Kathy and I are now into our 22nd year of marriage. So this one outlasted the first one, at least by 5 years already, and we have no idea of or plans of it going anywhere else. But when we talk about marriage, I just want you to understand completely who I am and where I'm coming from so you can be comfortable that way. When I think about this, I'm so old school and I'm so old. I think about, remember the good old days where nobody got divorced and everybody was fine and it was great. And remember the old sitcoms with Lucy and Ricky and Dick Van Dyke and Laura, Mary Tyler Moore and, everything. It was just so pleasant back then. There wasn't all this angst about marriage and all the dysfunction in marriage and all this stuff going on. And then someone sent me this text that was quite jolting, and I'll just read it to you. Remember Andy Griffith Show? Andy of Mayberry, quaint, good old. Well, listen to this. The reason Mayberry was so peaceful and quiet is because nobody was married. Andy, Aunt Bee, Barney, Floyd, Howard, Goober, Gomer, Sam, Ernest T. Bass, Helen, Thelma Lou, Clara, and of course Opie were all single. The only married person was Otis, and he was drunk. So much for the good old days when everything was sweet and peaceful. Oh my goodness. So when we think about marriage, it's the whole idea of two becoming one. Matter of fact, if you have your Bibles, go right to the front couple pages, Genesis chapter 2. I want to give you what I believe is the foundation for marriage in these two very well-worn verses. My guess is you probably had them quoted by your minister when they married you, where Genesis 2:24 and 25 say, "For this cause a man shall leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave or cling to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed." Marriages are great. I mean, you get that wedding, you get that pastor up there to read those scriptures and say those kind things. And when Jesse was still pastoring Rain City, one of his younger brothers, John, the computer guy, asked him if he would perform the ceremony for he and his bride. So Jesse married John and Lisa. And it was a very touching moment for me on the front row watching all these Butterworth guys in action. And Jesse, who's usually a bit of a cut-up and a clown, was very serious at one point, and he looked at John and he said, "John, look at your bride. Isn't she radiant? Isn't she beautiful?" And you probably think she could never be more beautiful than she is right now, but you're wrong. I mean, this is just the beginning. As you grow old together, you will see a new beauty that you've never seen. It's just absolutely amazing. And Lisa, look deeply into John's eyes. Isn't he handsome today? Do you find yourself thinking, he'll never look better than he looks right now? And Lisa, you're right. So much for the poignant mood at that point in the wedding. But when we think about marriage, we think about weddings, it's a very significant thing. So what happens? Well, let's pretend here for a second. Let's pretend that you and your spouse are invited to go to a party or a fellowship, if that's what you prefer denominationally, all right? So you're invited to this party. And if we can just play out the stereotypes for a second, and don't get upset, everybody's unique. We talked about that yesterday. If you're not this stereotype, it's not a big deal. But what I'm trying to emphasize is how differences between a bride and a groom start to surface. The invitation arrives, a party. The woman thinks, I wonder who will be there, whereas the man thinks, I wonder what they'll serve to eat. Okay? And it's finally party night. We get dressed. The woman spends hours trying to figure out exactly what to wear for that party because her outfit is, in her own words, a statement of who I am. Whereas the guy says, what should I wear to keep me from being naked? Like a shirt that will appear on a photo during the open wallet scene. I'm in trouble there. Let's get in the car and drive to the party. Now, this is my wife. Driving is, and I have an exact quote, an opportunity to practice good citizenship and keen obedience to the law. This is what my wife believes. Whereas for the guy, it's, let's see how fast I can get there. All right? Now, once we're at the party, let's socialize. In our case, Kathy will find a couple of close friends and talk deep into the night. All right? Whereas I'm the kind of guy who works the room. Hey, how are you? Hey, how about if we do lunch? You got the car? Yeah, call me. All right, we'll do it. Yeah, have your peeps talk to my peeps. Hey, and we get through, and it's like, wow, what a great party. I talked to like 100 people. I got lunches lined up through the next 3 years. How about you, honey? What'd you do? Oh, I saw, Catherine, and we talked forever, and it was just great to catch up. What? You spent the whole party with one person? You wasted a whole party on one person? Well, what did you do? I worked, and you're so shallow. Oh, you're so deep. Well, let's go back home. And before we go to sleep, let's have a little TV time, shall we? And a woman may say, I don't care how big the big screen is as long as I can put it in a beautiful cabinet with doors to cover it up when it's not in use. But let's see if I can get through this part without tearing up. For a guy, seated in a warm recliner, watching something athletic, surrounded by 8 remotes, a tub of ice cream, bag of chips. All is right with the world. Guys, am I right or what? Yeah, okay. Well, we better end it there. We won't even go to the bedroom where someone thinks it's too hot, someone thinks it's too cold, someone is frisky, someone is frosty. Someone wants to talk, and somebody is already snoring. Welcome to Married Life, USA. Now, that may completely describe your marriage. That might be the most foreign thing you could ever imagine. You know, a lot of it depends how long you've been married. Kind of newlyweds, oh, honey, let's let that never happen to us. Dream on, my friends, dream on. All right? But it's okay. That's part of what attracted us to one another. And so when we get to this Genesis passage and we see that for this cause a man shall leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, we have the first principle of a healthy marriage. And that is, number one, marriage is based on the foundation of commitment. Marriage is based on the foundation of commitment. And it's all about one word in that verse 24. This cause a man shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave, shall cling, shall be attached in a permanent manner. When Paul quotes this verse in the New Testament, we obviously move from Hebrew to Greek. The Greek word is even stronger. It's like to weld together, to permanently bond, to cement. It reminds me, if you know old commercials, remember the old super glue commercial where the guy had the hard hat and he glued himself to the steel girder up above him and it held him because it was that binding. It was that tough. That's the kind of thing we're talking about there. Clinging is not exclusive to marriage, by the way. Moses in Deuteronomy talks about the fact that you and I should cling to God. We should attach ourselves to him and be, bound in that way. Ruth and Naomi, that famous verse, where you go, I will go, and I will cling to you. Same Hebrew word, that we are attached. It's a relationship that's bound by commitment. Now, a couple of subpoints under that. By that commitment, I mean, letter A, it's a command. And letter B, it's a choice. It's a command, first of all, letter A. You see the John 13 passage there. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you. A new command that I give you. We read Bible talk all the time, and it loses its punch. Think about this for a second. Jesus is not saying, here's a good suggestion. No, it's a new command. He doesn't say, now, think about this as to whether you could possibly weave this into your marriage relationship. No, it's not an optional thing. It's a command that we love one another. And I think the reason that it is a command is because, as point B says, it's a choice. That love is something that you and I have the choice to do. Love is a decision. It's volitional. When I first started out speaking, I was doing a lot of Christian college campuses, doing a lot of chapel talks, and I'd speak in their chapel, and the president of the university would sit behind me, and he'd say, oh, wow, that was really good. The students really loved you. Why don't you stay over tonight and do kind of a voluntary session? We'll pack the place out. It'll be fantastic. And I remember they'd announce, oh, Bill Butter's going to stay here tonight, and we'd have this optional session. And of this student body of thousands, there's like 6 of us circled up in a circle of chairs. And it's like, well, this is not a good thing. I'm obviously not connecting. And then I realized, well, you know what? Maybe a better topic would be helpful. So somewhere in the chapel message, you say, hey, well, if you're interested, tonight, come back. I want to talk about how to know if you're really in love. Boom. Packed out. And the boys and girls are coming in holding hands, and, the girl's like, this is great. I have so many questions about Morty and me. I just hope that this guy will help me understand if he's the right guy. And Morty's there, yeah, this is exciting. I hear there's pizza. And what I would try to help everybody understand is, look, you go to the movies, you read a romance novel, there's this whole emotional side of, ooh, I get butterflies when I see him, and oh, it's so wonderful. And the guys try to respond, yeah, I see you, and there's some nausea for me as well. And guys don't always get it, do they? And obviously, they're dealing big time with the physical issues of love. But I said, you got to remember there's one other aspect that you may be forgetting, and that is you choose to love. Love is a decision. There is a volitional aspect to love that goes along with the emotional, that goes along with the physical. But it all starts with that choice, that volitional choice, choose to love. Now, anybody who has ever been married, actually anybody who's ever been in any kind of relationship, knows that there are plenty of times in the relationship where you have to simply choose to love that person because they're not in a very unlovable place right now, and you have to choose to love them. 22 years ago, I was speaking at a church, and there was a little skit before the speaker, which was me, and it was really a fun thing because it was a group of small group leaders at a mega church. So there were like 300 small group leaders in this meeting. And 22 years ago, if you're a TV trivia nut, the number one show on TV was the first season of Survivor. And so everybody and their uncle was doing a Survivor theme. Oh, we want you to come. We're going to do a trip to Small Group Island. And Bill, you're going to be the Friday night speaker that kicks this off. And all the speakers are in pith helmets and Hawaiian shirts and khaki shorts. And I'm like, whoa. I don't do shorts. I told God a long time ago, you keep me alive, I'll never show my legs in public. I said, all right. Well, that's okay because you're the plane ride over. I said, okay. So tell a funny story about a funny flight that you had or something. It'll be perfect. So I get there, and they say to me, now, right before you go on, there's going to be a skit. And the skit is we've taken all the pastoral staff, and we've dressed them up in crazy costumes that are going to be on this plane flying over. And I'm telling you all this because I know that you like a lapel mic. And the straight man for the skit's going to have a lapel mic, but we've instructed him to give it to you when it's over, and that's it. So I'm watching this skit. All these crazy pastors are there in short pants and beanie with the propeller with a big lollipop, pretend. It was crazy. But the straight man comes out to deliver the setup lines, and it's this absolutely beautiful flight attendant in a United Airlines flight attendant outfit. And I'm like, hava. And she's got the lapel mic, which means she's going to give it to me. So the skit is over, and I remember she comes over to hand me the lapel mic, and I'm doing the single man's twitch. She's not wearing a ring. This is good. She loves God. She hates the devil. She's in the front. This is very encouraging. So she hands me the mic, and she proceeds to the very back row in the left side. Well, I'm giving my talk, and I'm just empowered by this. I mean, God is speaking. I'm working this side of the room like crazy. I mean, these poor folks, it was like, almost give them their money back. They're not even a speaker over there. And I'm working hard, and I'm getting to the end, and I realize the pastor's on the front row, and he said, Bill, you're the last thing. When you're done, just close in prayer. So as I'm coming to the end of my message, I realized, you know what? If I close in prayer, I'm up here, she's back there, I'm never going to see her again. So it's one of those moments where God speaks. And I say, we've come to the end. I think it would be really appropriate for the pastor to come up and close in prayer. And I'll never forget him coming up the stairs, giving me the dirtiest look, like, you idiot, we went over this in the green room. You're supposed to close. Well, I'm no idiot. I'm making my way to the back. I am all the way at the back row by the time the prayer is over. And when he says amen, I'm like, well, hello. And it was really amazing. I had been single again for 6 years, and we knew very quickly that this was right. And so we started planning our wedding. She had been married before, so we realized, you know what? We got married by ministers last time, and it's not a good thing. Let's multiply. We had 3 ministers at our wedding marrying us, and one of them was one of the associate pastors at the church. We got married at St. Andrew's Presbyterian in Newport Beach, and that's where Kathy had actually a very strong connection with her coming to know the Lord through the divorce recovery program there that was, cutting edge back then, based on Jim Smoke's book, if you're old enough to remember that. And then this wonderful guy who was the head of divorce recovery, dear Saint Bill Flanagan, who went by the name Flan. Did anybody ever know Flan for any reason? Renee, did you know Flan? Okay. So Flan is just this dear, humble Presbyterian pastor who's going to be one of the 3 guys that marry us. But he's the one connected to the church. So he says, we have certain rules. You have to have 3 premarital counseling appointments. We got to get everybody together. So we do the first 2. Everything seems to be going fine. Flan's cutting jokes. Oh, I read your latest book. We're doing all this funny stuff. It's a week before we're supposed to get married, and we haven't done the 3rd counseling appointment yet. And we kind of were putting it off because it wasn't about counseling anymore. The last appointment was who marches down the aisle when, who sings, who reads the scripture, who says hallelujah. It's just the program of the wedding. Well, a week before our wedding, Kathy injures her back, herniates discs in her back. She's flat on her back in her little condominium. Flan has no idea. He starts harassing me over my phone answering service. We need this 3rd appointment. If we don't have this 3rd appointment, you can't get married here. And I'm like, I'm trying to keep this woman alive. I don't know what's going on here. And he's like, well, we got to have this 3rd appointment. I mean, he's a by-the-book guy. I said, all right, look, this is the apartment address for Kathy's condo. Come meet me over there. We'll do our 3rd. That'll be great. He says, don't worry. God's got this all figured out. So I meet Flan over there, and Kathy is lying on a couch, and she's just in agony. And Flan's going on about all this different stuff. And I'm just fascinated by the fact that he's so kind and loving and pastoral, but he's got his game face on about this is how I'm going to do the wedding. And I thought, I'm going to have some fun with this guy. I mean, there are certain people in life, if you're a fun-loving guy, there's the straight man you've always prayed for in your life, right? And Flan was one of them. So at one point, Flan says, well, I think this is good. Anybody have any questions? And I decided to go for it. I said, Flan, look, I think we should address the elephant in the room. I mean, look at Kathy. She's flat on her back. He says, yeah. I know. I've done hundreds of weddings. If we need to, we will wheel her down in a wheelchair. I've done a lot of weddings like that. It's no big deal. I said, it's exactly what I wanted him to say, by the way. I said, Flan, you may not know, but in her condition, sitting is the most uncomfortable posture she can have. He goes, oh, I didn't know that. I said, but now don't worry, I can see your concern, but I've already thought this through. I said, I made some calls, and if we need to, we can bring Kathy down the aisle on a gurney. And his eyes got so wide, and he goes, a gurney? And I'm like, I'm just getting started. I'm like, yeah. And I can tell by the look in your eyes, it's like, oh my goodness, that's going to be really strange. But don't worry, I've got it all handled. He's like, what? I said, I've called all over town, and if we need them, I can get a gurney for every person in the wedding party. There are 12 more of us. We can wheel my kids down. We can wheel her friends down. It's going to be amazing. We'll have like 14 gurneys lined up in the front. It's going to be amazing. And this quiet, kind Presbyterian pastor went raving Pentecostal on me. He jumps out of the seat and goes, no, we're going to pray right now that she is going to be healed. She will be healed. She will walk down the aisle, And I'm just where I always wanted to be. Just gotcha, It was great. And then I looked over at my bride-to-be. And all I could think of was, will she choose to love me now that I am being unlovable? She did. I heard about it afterwards, but she chose to love me. Now, that's fun. That's funny. I love that story. But I also am realistic enough to know maybe there's stuff in your marriage that can't just get a cute little laugh at the end. There's stuff that's really, really hurtful, really painful. And maybe your spouse knows about it, maybe they don't. But it needs to be addressed. I mean, choosing to love your spouse because they're unlovable is part of God's command, but we also want to address it so that we can move both of us back to the lovable category, all right? So that we have a thriving, growing, healthy relationship. It will not grow if commitment is not rock solid, okay? So point number one, I'm spending a lot more time on. We'll go through the other ones quicker. Point number one, marriage is based on the foundation of commitment. Okay, here's number two. Marriage, number two, is built on the friendship of companionship. Is built on the friendship of companionship. Verse 24 and 25, this cause a man shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife. That's the commitment. They shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. Now, for most of us, the first thing we see in our minds are two naked bodies. But the issue isn't so much that the man and woman are undressed. We're going to get to the physical part of it in point 3. To me, this is that they have no secrets, that they are completely honest and open and transparent with one another. That's what the naked and not ashamed is all about in Genesis chapter 2. And so this says to me, for example, subpoint-wise, that it's all about depth. Proverbs 18:4, the words of a man's mouth are deep waters. The fountain of wisdom is a bubbling brook. That the longer we are together, the more each of us get to know the other person, so that as annoying as it can be to our friends, we do tend to finish one another's sentences because we know exactly how we're thinking. And we do, I know this wasn't on the list, but when I saw this on the store, I picked this up for you because I knew you would really like something like that. That there is a depth, there is a growing of companionship, all right? A lot of counseling and psychological literature calls this intimacy. Okay, we tend to think of intimacy as sexuality. That's going to be what we'll call passion, all right? Intimacy is two people connecting in a non-sexual way, and they are growing deeper with one another because they appreciate one another. Now, I made a joke in the early part about this party about Kathy and I are very different in the whole world of how we relate to people. If you ever participated in the Myers-Briggs kind of stuff, she's a very strong introvert in that she goes deep with a few people. She just yesterday talked to her college sorority roommate. Kathy was in the sorority years ago, all right? But they still connect, all right? I'm a raving extrovert, which means I have hundreds of friends. Some of them I don't even remember their names anymore because I only spent 3 minutes with them when I did that speech in Paducah, but they're all my friends. And in terms of depth, I got to work at that. And it's like, wow, how are we gonna work on that? And see, she helps me by providing depth in our marriage. I help her by providing breadth in our marriage. And so rather than seeing them just as opposites and we can't get along, it's let's work together so that we can use our strengths to help one another. Another place where we're very different is I am of the personality where I live in the present. Let's really make this meeting good. And Kathy has more of a visionary kind of thing. Yes, let's make this meeting good because it could lead to more meetings, and think of the relationships we could develop and what we'll do in years to come. And I'm like, whoa. Let's just get through point 2 and point 3 here, and then let's have lunch. Right? If you've ever done any home improvement projects, it's like, okay, I don't work well with my hands. I made that confession yesterday, but sometimes I'll get talked into doing something, and that I'm just focused on that. Let's just get this thing put back in the kitchen. And we finally get it into the kitchen. I'm thinking, yes, glory. Only to hear, wow, now that we put that in there, look through to the dining room. Can you see if we do this to the dining room, how helpful that will be? And I'm like, no. Appreciate what's in the kitchen. Let's not do the dining room for another decade. Because she's looking ahead, and I'm like, let's just be right here in a glorious place. So it's about depth, and then letter B, it's about trust. One of my favorite verses, 1 John 4:18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves punishment, and the one who fears is not perfected in love. Part of what I love about this is it's a different take on word opposites. I say black, you say white. I say salt, you say pepper. I say love, you say hate. But this passage says the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is fear. And why is fear the opposite of love? Because love, in its truest sense, involves trust. So if you're in a marriage this morning where the trust has been violated, let me tell you, you need to understand why your partner is having such a hard time regaining that trust. Because it is a very important part of love. And it's something that needs to grow deeper and grow stronger rather than to be violated. It can be overcome, but it takes a lot of work. It's very important from that perspective. So, marriage is built on the foundation of commitment. Marriage is built on the friendship of companionship. And number 3, marriage is blessed with the fire of what I'm calling co-passion. C-O-P-A-S-S-I-O-N. Co-passion. Passion that both partners are enjoying. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother, shall cling to his wife, and they shall become, there it is, one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. I sound like I'm doing a tribute to old TV commercials, but there's an old commercial for, of all things, a laundry detergent. Cheer. When they first came out with what they called all temperature cheer. All temperature. And the deal was you can use this soap in cold water, warm water, or hot water. It's all temperature cheer. Now, why I remember that, I don't know. I guess this is why my son is in advertising. He has figured out that you can do things that people will never forget if you make it a crazy TV commercial. But all temperature cheer perfectly describes marital love from God's perspective. You have the cold, rock-hard commitment of love. Point 1. I am committed to you no matter what. That is a cold, hard decision, whether I feel warm and fuzzy or whether there's passion. I am committed to you. That's the cold, hard truth. Warm. That's the companionship. I love talking to you. I love learning about you. I love the questions you ask me. I love when you don't ask me questions. I just appreciate how you and I get together and how we belong and grow and converse. It's really a good thing. And then I love the heat. I love the passion that we have in our marriage. Now, there's a very important concept about passion, and it's in the subpoints here. Letter A, it, speaking of passion, is at its best linked to the other two. It's at its best linked to the other two. I've heard from the time I was newly married the first time, the greater the intimacy, the greater the passion. You just don't turn on passion, although most men can, instantaneously. But in order to have co-passion, it's not just about passion. It's about the greater the intimacy, the greater the passion. And it's obviously assuming that there's a rock-solid commitment there as well. So the three areas work together, and it's beautiful. However, stereotypically, men are all about passion, and women are all about intimacy. And so there's something that we need to address together and figure out how we can be more intimate together, so how we can be more passionate together. And some have already discovered it, and it's a beautiful thing. And our marriage just grows and grows. Letter B, it's a gift from God. It's a gift from God. Honor marriage, Hebrews says, and guard the sacredness of sexual intimacy between wife and husband. I don't know what your background is. I don't know how you grew up, but an awful lot of people grew up thinking sex is just a bad thing, period. It wasn't that just sex outside of marriage was something you ought not be fooling around with. Just sex, period, is bad. And that's not what God ever said. Sex is beautiful. Passion is beautiful in the context of marriage. So, unfortunately, by the way some of us were brought up, we have to have that as a hurdle to overcome, that I still, even though it's my partner, I feel dirty, or I feel like abused, or, and I'm not being abused, but I'm just not connecting in this way. And so there's issues there that need to be developed. So let me give you 3 concluding practical applications, and then, like I did yesterday, let me give you a little report card on the Butterworth situation here, and you can take that as you will. First application is this: avoid polarizing your partner. Avoid polarizing your partner. One of the things that I always worry about when I present the idea that opposites attract, and this one likes breadth and this one likes depth, is that we use that as a weapon against the other person. You shallow thing, you should get more depth in your life. You're just stupid. No, that's not why we're accenting that there are differences in our relationship. It's like, wow, you've got something I really don't have. I had the sweetest thing happen last night. Somebody in this room who I didn't even know came up to me and said, I just want you to know, when you said you don't work well with your hands, I want you to know, I think you give a really good presentation. So just remember, you do something good. I just wanted to give the guy a hug. And he said, now I work well with my hands, but I couldn't do what you do. And I said, yeah, well, believe me, I could never do what you do. You can ask my wife, but I prefer you didn't. Okay? And so avoid polarizing your partner. Secondly, make a conscious effort to become well-rounded in your love. Become well-rounded in your love. Now, I'm not only not well with my hands, I'm not good with math. So this is a mathematical conundrum. I'm telling you to take this triangle of biblical love and make it well-rounded. We got a round triangle. Go figure, all right? But if you haven't sensed it yet, that's what we have. We have an equilateral triangle of 3 elements: commitment, companionship, and co-passion. 3 equal sides of a triangle. If one is bigger than the other, then the one that's smaller is the one that needs some attention right now. If there are 2 that are small, then 2 of them need attention right now. It's the kind of thing that we need to look at seriously. And then third, commit to a team approach in your love life. Commit to a team approach in your love life. Whatever this struggle is right now that's bringing your marriage down, let's address it together. Let's say, look, this is what we need to do. What is it that I'm doing that's making it difficult for you? What can I do? And then let me tell you what I think you could do that could be helpful. Rather than polarizing, you got this problem, young man or young lady, and get it worked out, because it's really ripping our marriage here. Don't just make it all about one singular part of the relationship. Work on it together. Some of you, I think, have super strong, solid marriages. I hope as you've been listening to this, maybe you've been thinking about not only how good your marriage is, but how someone in your families whose marriage is struggling, maybe one of your children or your grandkids or whatever, you see, boy, this would be something that they could really benefit from. I hope that that would be of significance to you. So, in just a couple of minutes, here's my report card. In regards to the foundation of commitment, I have to say, again, in all humility, it's an A+. I mean, having been through a marriage that did not stay committed, I so appreciate the rock hard nature of the commitment to marriage. And so Kathy and I are on board with that, A+ all the way. Companionship, the second one. I very generously give myself a B. Kathy is my best friend. And I've always said that in a very positive way until I realized that by having her as my best friend, I was living a bit dangerously in that I was making her not my best friend, my only friend. And that I was putting all kinds of weight on her as she helped me process things in my life. And a term came to the top called smothering. And it's like, honey, I love you, but you're smothering me here. I mean, what's going on? So, fortunately, I had a therapist friend who helped me see through this, and he made, in my mind, even to this day as I say it, I just imagine the audience going, what'd you just say? He said, you know the best thing you can do to deepen your relationship with your wife? I said, no, tell me. He said, go out there and get a bunch of men friends and do a little hanging out with them. What? That's time away from my wife. Yeah, you getting it, blonde boy? You're smothering her, man. She doesn't have a life of her own. I mean, she's like babysitting you. Get a clue. Go get some guys. Talk about guy things. Talk about even non-guy things if you're brave. But get some friends in your life beyond your wife. And you know what? It was the best thing that could have ever happened. And I've got some incredible male friends right now in my life that I talk to. If you consider text talking, I talk to them every day. Every day. And they're all older than me, so half of them never even texted until they met me. Sometimes Kathy feels like I'm not really listening to her. We were up here last month doing a week, and we had the most interesting experience on the way up. The flight from Texas was a bit rugged all the way, so the seatbelt sign was on the entire flight. And I got so uncomfortable because she had a captive audience. And she talked. And she talked, and she continued to talk. And then in the next hour, she talked again. And I kept, dear God, make that light go off. Make that light go off. I need a breaker. I got to get up. I don't have to do anything else, but I got to do something else. I mean, this is crazy. And they would not turn that belt light off. And we landed in Portland, and she's like, wasn't that wonderful? When is the last time, And I'm thinking, yeah, when was the last time? Because, I'm dying under that belt there. Let me out, And it's like, wow, what a selfish slob I am, Because, oh, no, you're really going down deep. That's very much in your personality. Let's go down very deep about this. But she says, you're not really listening to me. I said, well, okay. So now we're doing a lot more work at seatbelt conversations. So I'll give myself a little bit of a better grade. The last one, co-passion. I say firmly with my tongue in my cheek, obviously all men think that it's an A+, but I will say I'll give myself a B because I am learning and growing even after 22 years of marriage, and passion is getting better all the time, even for an old buck like me. And so I think that's a pretty good grade. So maybe you can take some time and look at that in your life over the next day or two. And like I said, Thursday, we're going to talk about a really bad report card grade, a marriage that failed and lessons that I learned and how to make it as a single, again, adult. Because I think there are plenty of people who might know folks or be that folk that could use that kind of encouragement. Okay? Let's pray. Lord, thank you for giving us the blueprint for marriage. Thank you for giving us something so clear and so relevant that we can grab it and put it into practice right away. Lord, I pray for any man or woman, any couple that is listening to this right now who is struggling in a marriage. I know what that's like. I know what that can feel like. I pray that you would help them to, again, as we are learning in the evening, learn about the redemptive part of even this very difficult situation. I pray that you would take this material and just use it as a springboard for people throughout this room to just talk in more honest form, in a deeper form. Thank you for giving us love that we could choose, love that we could enjoy through companionship, and the fire of a passionate marriage that you've also set as your standard. Give us those kinds of marriages, Lord. For many of us, help it to be a time of renewal for that which we already knew, but we want to make that choice yet again. We love you, Lord. We pray this in the strong name of Jesus, our Savior. All God's people said.